Welcome to Sunrise Life, the podcast where we have deep conversations with fellow freelance models. Today, I have my friend Erin Divine on the other line. Hi, Erin.
Hi, everybody.
I'm excited to have her on my podcast because I recently found out that she also has a podcast, and I listened to some of the episodes while we were on the road, and they're really interesting.
Oh, did you? Okay.
I listened to, you had like a 3-part topic about like, your relationship with men, like throughout the course of your life, and then with modeling and how it's affected that.
Yeah. My podcast is kind of like basically something I had to do for myself. It was just a form of expression that is easy for me to do. Like, just talking and telling stories is easy, and it's a way for me to just express without me censoring myself. I don't allow myself to, I do listen. I can listen back to the episodes, but I don't allow myself to like go in there and edit things or cut anything out or anything like that. I just talk about what I want to in the moment. I leave in all of the pauses and everything like that, and then I just publish it and move on to the next thing. So that's kind of the vibe of mine, is sort of personal stories and then my journey. So,
like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to editing out like pauses and so I do that, even though I probably don't have to. I don't know why. It's kind of like my same policy for myself of if I have like a bruise, I'm going to edit it out. I'm like, oh, it was really there. It's part of me. But also, if I do take the time to put it in Lightroom and edit it, then I can. So I should. That's how I feel about my, I guess, a little bit of perfectionism.
Totally understandable. That's the thing. I'm trying to fight my own perfectionism in that, just in this particular medium is where I'm not allowing myself to do that, because I certainly would all day long in anything that I write or anything that, photos or editing or anything like that. I would always do that. So this is like the one medium where I'm just not allowing myself to do it.
That's good. No, I think it's a healthy exercise, honestly. I feel like too many people see the perfect side of everything on everyone's social media, and it is a relief to hear an or to see a Z.
Yeah, well, when I have heard, there's at least one podcast that I listen to where she'll be like, oh, wait, that's the alarm for the rice cooker going off. Hold on a second. I mean, she'll, pause it and come back, not like make us wait 15 minutes while she goes and does that. But yeah. I don't get annoyed about it. In a way, it makes me feel like, oh, I don't care about that, so I can do it too, and not be worried about people being annoyed about it when they're listening to my podcast or something. So Giving me permission, if you will.
I can dig that. So when we first met, I think it's because you saw that I was going to be in Las Vegas and our paths were going to cross. And then we did a shoot together plus like a OnlyFans / TikTok collab. And I'm really glad that you reached out to me.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I had wanted to for a long time. You're very present on social media. Almost anybody that works with traveling models knows who you are. And also because, I don't know, you and I are the same size. So I always find that that's a pleasing thing to do when you're collabing with somebody, is to be kind of a similar build.
Similar aesthetic, similar audience or whatever.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So yeah. And of course there's the selfish, like, wow, I'm going to sponge off of some of Christy's like audience and everything like that. But also, I just think that you're great to work with, and we just have a similar vibe.
Thank you. Yeah, no, when I first met you when we shot together, I was like, this chick is cool. We're going to hang out more, hopefully. And then on that same note, although every time on the internet when I'm doing like share for shares with random chicks that I've never met on OnlyFans, sometimes I'm like, oh, this chick's Instagram page looks cool. Like, I wonder if we're ever going to meet in person. And I kind of want to be friends with everybody, but at the same time, I know that not everybody's going to want to reciprocate that too. People are like, oh, how do you make money on OnlyFans? I wish I could travel the world and like, be like you. And I'm like, okay, well, you have to do all these tiny little things. And sharing each other on social media is one of those tiny little things. And if you don't do a bunch of these tiny little exercises or habits that build up to how you're making income on the internet, then you're not going to succeed, because you can't just like wait for the big break. You're not going to get like some talent agency that's like, oh, I want to give you $1 million to model for like Maybelline or whatever. Like that shit just doesn't happen.
Right. No, this is a really good point. You're actually reminding me of something when I talk to people who aren't in the industry. I get one of two, well, I mean, probably get more than that, responses, but some are like, oh yeah, OnlyFans. It's like, firstly, I get a lot of people being like, oh yeah, I know somebody who does that and they make so much money. And they think that it's easy money. They think it's like just all you do is just put stuff on there and the money just rolls in. And the other thing is, if I say, I'm a social media influencer or something along those lines, they'll say, oh, that seems like so much work. And then I'm like, well, work is a lot of work. I mean, I'm like, what do? You buy and sell steel or something. And I'm like, that sounds like a lot of work to me. But I mean, they aren't wrong. They aren't wrong in both cases. But I don't know. Do you get those kind of responses when you talk to, non-content creator people?
It is kind of weird, because I feel like I'm isolated a lot of the time. And nowadays, mostly the only people that I interact with are my boyfriend and other freelance models. And then when I go back to Seattle, I see other people that sometimes I don't know very well. Mm-hmm. If they know me like on Facebook, or if they know Travis on Facebook, then they see this like curated life that we have where we're traveling in the RV and doing photo shoots and stuff. So they think that everything is just fantastic and easy and that we're so lucky. We are lucky. I'm not saying that we're not like blessed, but when it comes to like Uber drivers or like acquaintances that are like a friend of a friend that don't really know me, I usually won't bring up modeling unless like it's really necessary to, because a lot of people seem to kind of act weird about it, or like they don't know how to respond or look at me after I've mentioned that I do modeling, because then I'm feeling like, how much detail do I go into? Like, and am I going to freak them out if I talk about the nudity,
Oh yeah, that's always the thing. Okay, I mean, I meet new people quite often, partly because I'm a rock climber, right? So I'm always like going climbing. This was the case last week. I went to the New River Gorge. I stayed with some of my friends, and then I met new friends because, mutual acquaintances. So that was that situation actually when I said, oh, I'm a, and yeah, whatever I decide what title I give myself, I just choose in the moment. So I might say, I think this time I said, oh, I'm kind of like a social media influencer, because that's sort of true too. And he's like, oh, that seems like a lot of work. But yeah, most of the time when I say I'm a freelance model, they're like, oh, do you like model like outdoor stuff? It's almost always the first thing they ask. Because,
that's an interesting
because I'm talking to climbers and that's what they assume.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah, like, you work for like Black Diamond or something. That's an outdoor brand, like North Face. I'm like, no. More. And then I usually just, out myself. I'm like, more like Playboy style, like kind of men hire me to, do the Playboy style type modeling. So I think that kind of gets, I don't even like to say erotic, because I've had this happen before where somebody said, like, made me kind of explain exactly what that is. Like, well, I don't understand. What is erotica? I'm like, okay, well, it's like nudity and like I don't know, like porn. I don't know what to say. Like, so that's I try to avoid that. So I just try to like kind of say something that might immediately be relatable. But yeah, then it's how are they going to react to what you say? There are sometimes it's case by case. Now, these people that I am talking about are younger. They tend to be around my age, and I don't worry too much about how they are judging me. And usually their response is like, oh, cool. And then it sort of ends there, right? I don't like have a whole conversation about it. In other cases, if it was like somebody like my Airbnb host or Uber driver or something like that, I would probably just say, I don't know, like lingerie or something like that. Something that people can kind of like somewhat grasp that is true, but I'm not a fashion model.
Yeah.
I'm trying to like impress upon them that it's like not a lifestyle or fashion necessarily. But I don't necessarily go into it being erotica. And if I say boudoir, only like 50% of people know what that is either. So I try. I usually don't do that either. I've learned.
I guess I feel like I've been so like deep in the forest, I can't see the trees for such a long time that I almost completely forget that like 99.9% of people don't know anybody who does freelance modeling.
Right. I'm amazed when I do find somebody who does. Like somebody I just met at the gym the other day, he went onto my Instagram and he's like, oh yeah, I had my own OnlyFans page, like a guy. And I was like, wow, that's unusual. Like usually I just don't expect that.
I suppose having an OnlyFans page is one thing, but also like being hired to do photo shoots for other people and like going to some guy's hotel room or basement or whatever is also another thing.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Because OnlyFans is so mainstream these days, people kind of understand like, oh yeah, like anybody goes to or can just make their porn in their own house with their partner or by themselves or whatever. Or collaborators, however it is they want to do it. But that is a totally different situation from, traveling and going to hotel rooms and home studios and things like that.
So how long have you had OnlyFans and how long has it been since you started freelance modeling?
Okay, I started freelance modeling I think I very first started in 2016 and I was 34 years old at the time. And that period of time, just briefly, like I didn't tell barely anybody what I was doing because I was so unsure of it myself. It was something that I knew I wanted to do. Well, okay, so I started by first modeling for art classes, drawing classes when I lived in State College, Pennsylvania. And there was just something I always liked about being nude around other people, I guess. I don't know. And I'm an artist. I like to draw people. So the money I made there, I kind of like spent it going and drawing the other models that were there because it's something that I enjoyed doing. And it just was a liberating feeling. And I just liked using my body in a creative way like that. And then I found out about Model Mayhem that way. So one of the instructors actually for the drawing classes hired me to photograph me as a painting references. And so he photographed me just so he could like do watercolor painting. So that's another level. It's kind of like people drawing you from life. Okay. People photographing you and then painting from that. That's another level. And then people photographing you and actually having these photos in order to either have or publish is another level of like, you're very identifiable, like that's me in that photo. And now this thing exists out there in the world. And so that is why you get paid better at that point. So then when I realized like, oh, I could actually make money at this, it was actually, I think maybe a couple of years after that I actually finished my Model Mayhem profile because I kind of just didn't take it very seriously. I was doing other things for a while and then then I got injured rock climbing, I think, and I had time on my hands. So I finished that profile and then I like did my first actual photo shoots. And luckily my first ones were pretty good experiences. So it was like, this is cool. I can do this and I can make money at it. And I was in that in between period of having regular jobs and therefore keeping this whole thing that I was doing very secret because I didn't want it to interfere with my ability to have or do these other jobs because one of them was like substitute teaching, children. And anytime you're like interacting with children, you can't like acknowledge that you're a sexual being apparently.
Right. Even though in order to have children, you have to have sex.
Right. Yeah. And like, right. And it's like, oh yeah, we're just going to all pretend that like children don't even like have even, yeah, I don't want to say something like that sounds really weird, but like, I don't want to like pretend that children know about sexuality or have any sexuality until they're like married or something
right.
like that.
No, they come in on the stork. The stork delivers them, and that's how babies are made.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, like that is a weird line to dance on, but I agree with you. As a person who was raised to not think about sex at all because it was sinful, I feel like if the topic wasn't like dodged so much, maybe as an adult, I wouldn't have so much shame around guilt, because how people act around certain topics when you're a kid dictates how you're going to feel about them when you're grown up. So maybe the whole like shame and sex and this is bad, like that's how I was raised. And so I still to this day like need to uproot a lot of that. And I'm 35 now.
Yeah. Yes. And I definitely had to uproot a lot of that as well, because I was also raised Catholic and I went to Catholic school. I mean, we literally had, father's class with the priest where that was our sex education. I mean, we had some other additional, like in health class, sex education too, but, it was abstinence only. It's like, men have this thing called a penis and they're going to try to put it in you and you need to not let them do that because that's bad. That's basically the lesson. And then in my family, it was just not talked about, basically, we just didn't even really mention it because it was just too uncomfortable. I mean, my mom is somebody who is afraid of even talking about like periods and things like this. So it was like, I did learn about all those things in school and from friends and stuff like that, but we didn't in my family have frank conversations about these things as if they're just normal parts of a life, being a person, being a woman.
For me, my parents didn't talk about it. They pretty much like shunned the topic altogether. Like there's, the church and the school and my parents were all like very against the topic at all. And then by the time I was, I think 14, my younger sisters were like 10 and 12. At that point, my parents were like, okay, it's time to listen to this audio tape that came from a Christian bookstore that's like, Jesus ordained for you guys to hear about sex ed. And I already knew about all this stuff, and I already had so much like negative energy between my parents and I and Christianity in general about sex. And it was so awkward for me that I was like, no, I don't want to hear about it. I don't know anything. I don't want to hear about it. Like I plugged my ears. And they played the tapes like while we were on a road trip, and I didn't listen to any of it because I had already been told by my friends about sex, and I had already started my period, and I was like hiding my bloody underwear for years and like lying to my mom about it because I was so awkwarded out by the whole thing that I didn't even want to talk to her about it. Like, and she had asked me by the time I was like, 13, 14, like, if I had started it, and I was like, nope, don't know what you're talking about. Like, that doesn't happen. I just rejected my like body as a woman altogether for many years.
Oh yeah. I can relate to that. Even now I can see, after I started modeling, even I can see how much like, I don't know, kind of disdain my mom has for like bodies, like I don't know. She didn't say, oh, I hate my own body, but more like just nudity in general. Like there is these set of glass vases that my grandmother had that just have like figures of women on them. Uh-huh. They're not even that detailed. And I was like, oh, these are cool. I have them actually right now in my house, in my apartment. And my mom was like, you're going to keep those nasty vases? And I'm like, what is nasty about them? Actually, like that they have depictions of women on them that aren't wearing like a nice tasteful frock or something like that. I mean, yeah, it was really important. I mean, it's an important step to me to embrace like the fact that I have a body and I just don't want to be ashamed about it. And then, so the kind of picking up that thread where I was like, okay, there's I started just doing art modeling and then artistic modeling as a nude model as well. And that seems kind of in a way was palatable at first to me. Like I jumped right into nudity. Some people don't. They're like, they start, oh, I'll do bikini and glamour first. But for me, it was actually less of a hurdle to just do the nudity, but only in an artistic way, but not in a sexy way. And then that was kind of the next step is like, okay, well, can I be nude and kind of like sexy at the same time? Is that okay? Am I participating in this whole sexualization of women culture that have this impression that it's not good because that puts women down or something? And so then I had to go through that, like, well, no, I can do this. I can be kind of like glamorous and sexy and explore that. And why not? Because it feels good to do this. And then erotic modeling. So being more open leg nude and more like kind of explicitly sexual. Well, that then was about, how about I refuse to be ashamed of any of these parts of my body? Instead of like trying to carefully hide my inner labia or something like that.
Yeah.
or my butthole or whatever. When I'm modeling, I don't have to do that anymore. And then also even then there is modeling specifically for the male gaze. And is that okay? So that's like the, I don't know, next level 2, where you're like, okay, I'm obviously doing this because it is what is in men's magazines and what they find provocative. And is that all right? And then I decided like, well, maybe that's okay too. So it was almost like I had to try all of these things. And every step of the way, it was really hard at first when photographers would be like, well, what are your limits? This is very common question for photographers to ask. And when I was still trying to figure that out, the answer to that very question, it was like, it was like hard to answer every time. And so I just had to just kind of lay that out sometimes. I'm like, okay, well, I just had some photographers who just approached things in the best way. I suppose they had enough experience to do that. For like, they would be like, okay, I want to do this type of photography. I won't publish these images anywhere without your approval, or they wouldn't publish them anywhere, period. They're just going to keep them for their own enjoyment, which, in a lot of ways seems like, it might sound creepy, but in a lot of ways that does feel a lot more secure and safe, that that, oh, I might do these images and then I want to sit with it and figure out how I feel about them existing in the world. But at least I know they don't have to be shown to the whole world at this moment. Like I haven't agreed to that necessarily. So kind of like I needed to have that step and that security in order to do those steps. And then, so what I would say then to photographers, I'd be like, okay, look, I am willing to do this. I want to try it for my own purposes. And yes, also because I make more money. You can charge more money to do more explicit work because fewer people do it. It's like, I kind of wish there wasn't so much of a taboo about sex and sexuality, but that's the very reason that we get to charge money to do it.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah. So I would always be like, listen, I'm willing to do this, but what you have to understand is that if at any point during this photo shoot, I don't want to do that, like, listen, you can ask me, to do something and I can say no. I can only tell you for sure what I am willing to do now, but I have to know how I feel in the moment. And that's like, I had heard somebody say this, it's like the kind of the female version of integrity. For like the masculine version of integrity is like, you do what you say you're going to do. And the female version of integrity, this masculine and feminine exist in men and women. It's not just men or women, but feminine version of integrity is being true to like what you are feeling inside of you in that moment. Like, so that's what I had kind of basically told them I was going to stick to. Like, I want to expect to be paid regardless of what I do. And, this is what I didn't want to happen, is to get to a shoot, be there, do some things, be like, I don't really want to quite go that far. And then have them just be like, well, then I'm not going to pay for you for this whole shoot. so I just laid it out there that was not an expectation or an option that I was willing to entertain. So they
I'm
had
sure,
to be willing to work with me on that, which they were. So
I'm sure a lot of that would depend on how the photographer is being respectful or not respectful towards you during the shoot. You could decide, all right, I'm not comfortable with this anymore if they're like breathing heavily and grabbing their crotch and stuff.
Yes, right, exactly. So since I didn't know what an erotic shoot would be like, I had to know that it was going to be okay if I said no, if they were just being, they were creeping me out. And luckily for me, my first several erotic shoots were totally fine. It was just like, okay, I'm having a regular conversation. They're talking to me like a regular human being. And I'm talking to them like a regular human being. Like we might be talking about, oh, you had a recent scare with cancer, or you're trying to lose weight, or, like just real kind of personal conversations sometimes. But I'm just like posing in this sexy way. And that was kind of, it was really good. It was like a good intro to that. Since then I've had some other like more more creepier interactions, but by the time I had those, I was pretty strong in my boundaries and could just be like, don't talk to me that way.
That's good that you had a good handful of positive experiences, and I'm actually pretty surprised at that, because when I first signed up for Model Mayhem, the wave of creeps came in, but maybe part of that was because I was like 18. I just turned 18.
Right.
But yeah. With this, though, I think it's the perfect time to segue into the photo shoot fail of the week. If you would like to describe a crazy photo shoot, whether it was fucked up because the scenario around the shoot was fucked up or the photographer themselves was out of line, what's a story that sticks out in your memory?
Yeah, so it's like I can't point to a particular, I do have one in mind that I'm going to talk about, but I can't pick, point to a particular one where I was like, wow, that was just like completely so fucked up. This one was actually so ambiguous to me. It was when I was very new to modeling, and a photographer messaged me and said, you're really great. I would like to photograph you. And he was actually a pretty good photographer, very well connected, like actually has several clients that he photographs for that do like illustrations for book covers and things like this. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. So I traveled over to where he lived. It was just a couple of hours from where I lived, and I stayed at his house. I had checked his references, like on Model Mayhem, you have verified credits and stuff like that. So several models were like, oh yes, he's a great to work with, blah, blah, blah. So I just kind of trusted it. And I went there and we did a photo shoot, and there were just like a few things that were like, okay, my hair was starting to look kind of like crappy by the, towards the end of the shoot, because we did like a lot of shooting in that day. And he like had this brush, this expensive hairbrush, like $130 for a brush or something like that.
Wow.
Which this is pretty expensive for a hairbrush. And so he like just was like, this is such a great brush. And then he like came over and brushed my hair like slowly. And I was like, this is weird. I don't like this. But that was it. And then I was like, we continued the photo shoot. And he says that he pretty much just does glamour. He's not really into nudes, but we did shoot nudes because that's kind of like what I was doing the most of and everything. He's like, oh, I'll shoot them for you. No big deal. And then so one thing that he said is he was like, well, wow, it was really bold of you to just come over here and do this shoot. And I was like, is it? So it just like put me on edge that he was commenting that it was like a bold move for me to do that, because I was like, why? Isn't this just a normal thing to do in this industry? You just, trust. And it is, because I've done it lots of times since then, and other models do it. So that's why I was like, yeah, why are you commenting that it's like so bold of me to do that? And then the next day he woke up early and had to go somewhere, and I was still sleeping. And then he came back and he like put his arms on my shoulders and was like, I almost came in and jumped on you last night. And I was like, what? So I had this like shock in my system, right? And I was like, why? And he said, I was looking for that hairbrush and I couldn't find it. And then I found it. But, but basically it was like, I was like, why would you say it that way? Like, and then like, why are you doing that? And then, oh, okay. So then the whole thing ended and I went home. And then he sent me like an email message later that was like, oh, I had a really great shoot with you. There's these people already like want to me to photograph a whole set for them that, you know, they'll pay you for to do like, you know, book covers or whatever. And he's like, and I personally am in love with you. I can't stop looking at your nudes. And so I was creeped out by that comment.
Whoa.
And so I was like, well, it's okay for you to say that my work is good, but like not okay for you to be personally in love with me. So I'm not sure like exactly what you're meaning here. And then, so I set that boundary, and then I never heard, like, actually, it's not true that I never heard from him again, but for months or years, actually, I haven't heard from him. But lately, more recently, he had messaged me. Not anything, just like kind of, I don't know, just making, like just saying things to me now, but many years later. But at the time, I just questioned this whole thing for a long time, and I kind of still do, whether it was my perception of like being very protective of, I want to really make sure that men aren't out to get me and stuff like that, and being inexperienced. And even if he is treating more experienced models with total respect, maybe he's, you know, thinking he can take advantage of me because I am inexperienced. And anytime I talked to somebody else about it, they would say, oh yeah, he was probably grooming you, or he was probably just seeing how you would react when he would say these kind of shocking things to see if he could take advantage of you. Now, once again, it's kind of like, well, am I getting that response from him and from other people because that's what I was already thinking and expecting? Or, you know, you know what I'm saying? It's like, if I just had this general assumption that like, I'm okay, I trust my judgment, men are generally fine and good, and I can just have strong boundaries and be safe, then I could have read this whole situation differently, or maybe he even would have acted differently towards me if I was kind of like embodying that sort of energy. But I was kind of in a like, men are out to get me and I have to protect myself kind of energy. Yeah. So anyway, that was that story. That was the most like difficult story. And it was just, honestly, it was just really disappointing too. The fact that he kind of ghosted me after that, because I was like, dang it. I thought it was like, oh, this person could like launch my career, you know, because he was very connected and a pretty good photographer and stuff. So I was like disappointed that he just like ghosted me and didn't want to talk to me after that.
That sucks.
I even messaged him a few times after that too, just to be like, maybe he just lost my email in the shuffle, or maybe he was like thinking I was mad, but all I'm doing is just saying these are the boundaries. I still want to work with you, but just don't say you're in love with me and can't stop looking at my nudes.
Yeah, that is weird. What a weird. I would feel weird about that too.
Yeah.
If he had a lot of like positive recommendations on his Model Mayhem profile, it does make me believe that he was trying to see what he could get out of you. And then when you set the boundary, it made it obvious that that wasn't going to happen for him. That's how I would read the situation, I guess. Yeah,
right. Yeah, and it's like, I mean, it sucks to think of it this way, but it's kind of like, well, these positive references are from experienced models. So he is working with very experienced models too. But he reached out to me first as a very inexperienced model and just being kind of like, oh, you're so cute. I would love to photograph you. And you're like, oh, cool. That's nice. But it's like, are you targeting me because I'm inexperienced and because you are. And so there is already an inherent power dynamic there. And, maybe not enough experience on my part to not be taken in by the opportunity, if you will.
Yeah, that is disheartening, but I know that it happens a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, these days, this is a thing that, I don't know if anybody else has said this on your podcast so far, but this is a thing that happens all the time, and especially if you're an erotic model, is that photographers will outright ask you, like, hey, I was just wondering, do you shoot POV? Which means point of view, which generally speaking means, will you give me a blowjob while I video it?
Yeah.
And to which I say, no, this is not a service that I offer. But I don't get scared when somebody asks me that. I'm not immediately like, oh my God, what the hell? Like, because there are enough models out there that will do it and that just see it as a business opportunity. No problem. It's because sex work, that direct provider type sex work, isn't legal in our country. And so nobody can easily just advertise what they do and do not actually offer. It's almost like I can't blame. This is how I think of it. It's like I almost can't blame photographers for asking because it's the only way they can find out whether you would do it or not.
And this topic has been brought up at least once over the course of my podcast, and I will note that I would much rather somebody ask me politely over email in advance that question than say, oh, hey, let's shoot, I like your style, come over, and then you show up thinking that they like your style, and then they ask you, will you suck my dick for an extra $100? Then you're on the spot in person, and you have to, if you're not firm in your boundaries or whatever, like, it could be, like, sketchy, especially if you're a newer model, because that's how boundaries get pushed. So I know that every time a person is asking that, do you do POV, or, like, can we do a sex video or something like that, if they're asking that over email, they're risking getting screenshotted and outed. So I understand that it's like a risk for them to ask in advance, but like you can't make it obvious, like you said, that you do provide certain services that are technically illegal. So like if the person doesn't ask, then like you wouldn't get that booking if you did provide that service. So it is tricky, but like if you're on Model Mayhem and you're advertising for photo shoots, I feel like it's inappropriate to ask that person that's only advertising that service. Like there are like websites that are on the fringe. I know Backpage got taken down and the Craigslist personal ads got taken down back in 2018. But there still are other websites like Seeking Arrangements and some other like sugar daddy, sugar baby type websites where you can hire somebody for like escort or like more sexual personal services, even though technically the wording of the rules of the website say you can't like hire somebody for that. Like it's inherent that that's what people are there for.
Yeah, right. Like it's more inherent that in a sugar baby, like in Seeking Arrangement, for example, that's more of an understanding on that site than it is on Model Mayhem. Like I'd say, the majority of models on Model Mayhem are not providing that service.
As a freelance model, like if hypothetically speaking, if I did provide those services, I feel like I'm creative enough to come up with a statement that allows people to read between the lines on what my like services might be. Like I could say, like if I was trying to market those services with a photographer that like contacted me over email because they saw my modeling portfolio and they asked me what my rates were, that would be the opportunity to say something like, my rates for glamour is this, and for art is this, and erotic is this, and then for more like off-camera surfaces or something like that. Like if you're trying to make money that way, like you'll come up with a way to state that. I'm not saying that photographers that are looking for sexual services should ask. It is dicey. It is dicey, but I feel like if you're the one that's trying to make the money, then you're gonna, come up with a read between the lines way to advertise it, right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. If you're like, right. Yeah. I think you're right. Like if I knew that I would be willing to do this and I actually want to find out I want to make it clear, then I would, if I was seeing that as a business opportunity, I would want to make that clear somehow to the photographer that that's on the menu.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think you're right that you could figure out some way of saying that.
Like POV scenes or whatever could be like a rate on your menu if you did do that. But, yeah, I'd rather be the one.
Action scene.
People do ask me about that kind of stuff. They're like, oh, do you do BG, or like, will you be the female talent and I'm the male talent? And I'm like,
yeah,
I'm happy that they ask, and I just say no, and I'm not going to screenshot them and out them, but I'm sure that somebody that gets offended about those questions might, so.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I guess that's my point, is that like, yeah, some, like maybe even earlier version of myself might have been very like shocked and offended about being even asked these things. But nowadays I'm just kind of like, nope, it's not a thing I do.
Yeah.
So if you ask me like more than once or hound me about it, I'll be really annoyed.
Yes.
Not work with you anymore, not talk to you anymore, and block you on all my social media probably. But yeah, that's how that goes.
Yeah. So I've definitely like progressed in my eroticism over the course of time. And so things that I have said no to before, I might be more willing to say yes to. However, for me nowadays, okay, let me step back a little bit. When I first started traveling and modeling, I was doing open leg modeling and stuff. I was looking for the paying gigs, and there were some private collectors, but I didn't discriminate against people that had their own pay sites, that they're like, oh, I want to hire you for 4 hours to shoot a bunch of like Met art style photos for my pay site. And I'd be like, okay, yeah, that's legit. And so I would do it. And I did all this like modeling for other people's pay sites. And now my badge is on all these thumbnail images that are on Google search engines because it's on their website, and they're trying to advertise the traffic to unlock the photo sets and stuff on their site. And so now I will no longer model for other people's pay sites because it competes with my own income on my pay sites.
Yeah. Yeah, I went through that too, and I would try my best always to like make sure I wrote a little clause in the model release, which anybody, you can do this. You can write things on there. Best if you tell the person ahead of time, obviously, so they know before they're paying you. Like, listen, I'm okay with doing this, but I do not want you to have any of the explicit images used for free, including, if this is what you want, including thumbnail images, including trailers for videos or whatever, if you're doing that kind of thing. Because yeah, that's something that I did pretty shortly after even just doing open leg still photography, doing like masturbation videos. I was like, I could do that. So that was one of those things where like, yeah, the very first time I did it, I was like for somebody's private collection. So I knew it wasn't going to be published anywhere. And I was like, yeah, I'll give that a try and see how it goes. And that person, he had just approached me in probably the best possible way, like, look, I've done these things with these other models that are well known. You can ask them, as references, and, they'll tell you I never leaked their videos anywhere or anything like that. And that I was always respectful, and that you're in control, and I'm not going to do anything weird. I'm just going to be over here behind the camera. And yeah, so yeah, and I was just like, yeah, is that a thing I could do? I could actually pleasure myself in front of somebody. So then when I did it a few times, it was like, actually this is pretty cool that I get paid to have orgasms at work. That's not so bad. And yeah, so where was it going with that train of thought? actually forget where it was. Oh yeah, I was saying, there was one time, and I have always written that clause in there, but there was one time that I did a scene for somebody, and I know that I wrote this in the model release, but I forgot to photograph the model release. I almost, except for that one time, always do that. So I will, write the thing in the model release, and I will photograph the model release so that I have it. Mm-hmm. And then that person made a trailer that was like a minute long, which showed like all the most explicit parts of this like masturbation scene. And I was like, could you not do that? Like, please take that down or censor it or something. And he wouldn't, he refused. And then I tried to contact the site and get them to take it down, because I'm like, or I tried to get him to send me the model release, and he was like, yeah, I'll fax it to you. And it's like, no, fax it to me. Send me a photograph, a high quality photograph of it, so that I can make sure that you didn't white out the part where I wrote in, don't put this explicit stuff on a trailer, And he's like, I'm so mad that you don't trust me. And I'm like, I don't trust you because you're doing the exact opposite of what we agreed to.
Yeah.
So why don't you just send me the thing in the way that I'm asking? If you don't have anything to hide, then don't fax it to me. Because, everybody knows that you can white out something and then photocopy it in a fax, and you wouldn't be able to tell.
Yeah.
Whereas in a high quality photo, you would be able to see like where somebody would have used whiteout or tape or something like that to cover that part. So yeah, but he wouldn't do it. And then he eventually just stopped responding and just like blocked me on everything. And just was super disrespectful, and like in the way that he was talking to me, he's like, oh, you girls, you like do this thing. And then you get all ashamed about it. And I'm like, no. I just keep saying, no, this is just not what we agreed to. I remember this. I remember having the conversation. I remember writing the thing. I just forgot to photograph it. And he's like, you keep going back to that. And I'm like, yes, I keep going back to that thing where you're not being in integrity and honoring our agreement. Yeah. So I guess I should have mentioned that as a horrific photo shoot experience, because that was the worst. That was by far the worst interaction that I've had. I mean, I have decided that this is not going to damage me and like harm my career or my reputation forever or anything like that. But I was just pissed off that was the situation.
Yeah. I've had similar situations where somebody like paid me extra money to cross my boundaries and promised that it would remain private, and then it was all over Pornhub. And so my trust was totally violated, and it sucked. But yeah, it sucks. But and then of course, over the course of time, years and years later, people are still like, oh, I saw this one video of you. Like, do you have anything more like that? And I can't help but reply. I can't say just like, oh, thanks, I'm glad you like that. I have to say, like, actually, that was against my consent. Even though it looked consensual in the video, I was coerced into that through lots of extra money, and that person totally stabbed me in the back by allowing it to be on Pornhub. This is before Pornhub. I guess Pornhub changed recently. They no longer allow revenge porn because they're on the chopping block. So you have to upload your ID with verification that you were consenting to be in anything that gets uploaded there now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, not a bad thing.
Years. Totally. I agree. I fully agree. I think that's how it should be. For sure.
Yeah. I just wrote this down here because I don't I could go into this now, but here's a recent thing that just came up for me.
Go for it.
So I'm on Purpleport, because I heard that's big in Europe and I want to go there. And I had somebody recently approach me, and he wants to put me in a video game. And what it would entail is that I send him photos of my whole body, right? And then he would be able to make basically a 3D replica of me and then put me into porn scenes in this video game.
Cool.
And at first I was like, cool. because I don't actually have to make any porn scenes. Like I don't have to like have sex with anybody to do it. But now I'm kind of like, I'm still sort of like, I don't know. I honestly do not know how I feel about that. Like I'm like, I'm going to sit with this for a little while because I really don't know. I know, I mean, okay, like let's be real. I made a bunch of solo stuff myself, and like I definitely want to go into this in this episode too. Like where am I at now in my career? Because the big development in my life lately is that I deleted my OnlyFans.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
No.
Yeah, well, because I haven't published my I did it about a month ago now. So, well, about a month ago is when I decided to do it, and it's a process. If you like, I mean, you could just delete it, but I wanted to do it in a kind of nice way, tie up some loose ends, some customs I had to like give to people, and hey, everybody download whatever you want from here because it's not going to be here anymore. But anyway, so it's kind of like I've kind of cut off this whole piece of my my business and identity, and so it's been a whole ride here. But yeah, so that's why I'm like questioning a little bit, like, do I want to do this like basically AI porn thing, right? Do I want my likeness to be used in this way? I'm not scared of that. I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm so ashamed about that or anything like that. But it seems that this person, I was like, yeah, sure, whatever, until he was asking me, how many fans or how many followers do you have on social media? And I was like, oh, you're wanting me to like promote this, or you're wanting to promote the fact that it is me in this game, and use the, starring Erin Divine as kind of a marketing tactic so that people who love Erin Divine can see me doing all kinds of sex things. And he says that I do get to approve any of the scenes before they would be placed in the game. But yeah, I'm just sitting with that for now. But anyway, let's back up to this. I can't actually, I did record actually 2 podcasts about this that I swear I will publish them today because I recorded them a while ago about me quitting OnlyFans. But just to give the brief synopsis, it was like this, where I know you asked me earlier and I didn't actually say, but I started OnlyFans in 2020, like when everybody else started OnlyFans.
Yeah.
Right after I was traveling and doing modeling, I had wanted to do it for a while, but I just didn't have time because I was so wrapped up in trying to make money just traveling and doing photo shoots. So when all of that stopped and we weren't going anywhere and I was on unemployment and just staying at home, then I was like, okay, cool. Well, I'll start my OnlyFans and use a lot of these photos and videos and things that I already have. So it was just a place to like actually be able to put some of that content because it just didn't fit anywhere else on the internet. And so that's how it began. And then I then I did it, and I went through like cycles with it where, my partner at the time, we did boy-girl stuff and we put that on there. I had varying amounts of nudity on the feed and the pay-per-view message. So I sometimes would put a nudity on the feed and then delete it all. And then not because I was afraid, but just because I wanted to maximize profits, right?
Yeah.
So there's so many different ways to manage your OnlyFans page. And if anybody knows things about OnlyFans, the feed is like once somebody subscribes at a monthly subscription rate, I've changed it a few times, but generally it was around $15. Once they subscribe, they can go in and they see whatever is on your feed, but you have to be currently subscribed to see what's in your private messages or whatever. So, what do I want to say? Like agencies that manage OnlyFans pages, they almost always say to not have any nudity on the feed or they'll censor it or whatever. I know this because I did hire 2 agencies and that's kind of towards the end of this story. But anyway, I went from 2020 to 2023, just managing it all, doing it myself. And, as far as like my successfulness with it, I thought about quitting it quite a long time ago because I was just like, frustrated with how much time it was taking and how it was like going to take even more time to be really successful at it.
Yeah.
Because what it really takes is being diligent about all the other social media, right? The TikTok and Instagram particularly, and maybe Reddit as well. I never actually did Reddit, but TikTok and Instagram are big ones. And so I finally, in I think just maybe October of this year, I hired the first agency that I had worked with. So, and they're really good. Like both, I worked with 2 agencies and they were both good. The first one was Endure, and they are a women-run agency. So they're kind of cool like that, where you're interacting with women. The people who are doing the sexting with your fans are women. So like, I was never lying about that. I always put that in my podcast and everything. Like, listen, anybody who cares about me enough as a person to listen to my podcast, I'm telling you right now, you're not talking to me anymore. If you're on my OnlyFans page, I'm not the one writing all of those sexting messages. I'm not writing the captions. So in my perspective, it was great because I was never really good at doing those things, and I didn't like doing it. It was just like a tedious chore. It's not that I was like disgusted by it. I just didn't have the vocabulary and the, I don't know, desire to get good at it.
Yeah, I know.
Using all the little cutesy emojis and being like, oh yeah, don't you want to put your big fat dick right here between my tits, or whatever, all this kind of dirty talking things. But I liked making the content. I mean, actually, it was always kind of fun, and I did genuinely get turned on. And then I would do like solo masturbation videos, and I always thought, wow, this is pretty great that I take sexy photos and videos, and I like get turned on, and then I masturbate and have orgasms, and then people pay me to do those things that I like to do anyway. So it was great. So then all I have to do is upload all of that content, and then the agency takes over from there, and they do the posting. So they schedule the posts, and they do all of the engagement with the fans, and talk to them about doing customs and things like this. And that agency was really good about using stuff from my vault, like things that I already had. I mean, because at this point I already had like almost 3 years worth of content in there. So if I didn't give them new content, they were pretty good at like recycling old stuff. Of course, they always wanted me to give them new content, and I did as much as I could. But they were also very on top of me about, you really need to be posting on TikTok every day, and preferably twice a day. And they would give me suggestions of like, here's some trending audios or just trends on TikTok, and also post on Instagram Reels all the time too. Which they aren't wrong. I was, in the moment, my mindset was like, well, okay, maybe they're just asking me to step into a level of consistency that I just never have done in my business before. And we all know if you do anything on social media, that consistency is really important. And so maybe this is just a good challenge for me. It's just me like becoming this version of myself who is, successful at this. And so that was my experience with them. And then another agency approached me that I just perceived as being better in a few ways. They were just bigger, more well-established. They had just more of a bigger team and just had other things that they did too. They said that they would pitch me to brands and get brand deals. And that was something that I was very much interested in. And so but I couldn't just say, oh, okay, can this agency just manage my OnlyFans and then you just do the brand thing? It wouldn't work that way because the OnlyFans was what was already making money. So it had to be like all or nothing. So I stopped with the first agency and did the second agency, which was Siren is the name of that one. And they similarly where I did have a social media person that I talked to every week, and she would always be like, giving me tips and stuff. And sometimes I just got like frustrated with just the technical aspects of TikTok. I'd be like, look, why? I just don't know how to do this thing. And I would just get so frustrated. Like, want to throw the phone through the window or something. But so I would get frustrated with that. But ultimately, yeah, it was kind of a similar deal where at this time I had an agent who would just check in with me every week. But, you could tell it was just sort of part of well, here's what I do on Tuesdays. I check in with all my clients and just say, like, just write him a text and be like, how's it going? What are you up to? And so is that. And then the social media person would talk to me every week too. And they were like, you really have to be posting on TikTok more often. I was like, okay, fine. I will do this. And they also they gave me a very specific list of things that they wanted me to give them for OnlyFans content every week. So they wanted 10 to 14 videos, which sounds like a lot, but a lot of them were short videos, like videos that are 30 seconds or longer. And preferably at least one full masturbation scene video and a couple of like striptease videos where I'm just like spreading and just, being provocative so that they can be like a lower price point type item. And, so I thought like, well, okay, yeah, it's great that you're asking me these specific things because I can just batch process that. And I was gearing up even to try to like do what a lot of creators do, which is to just create like a month or two worth of content all in like 2 days or something, and then just give it to them, and then they just drip it out, and then I don't have to worry about OnlyFans content for a while. But what I do always continually have to worry about is the other stuff, the TikTok and Instagram. And so TikTok became like, I would spend 4 hours just making like TikTok videos or something. And the audios, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, sorry, I just got a phone call. The audios would get stuck in my head, of course, because your voice doing a lip sync, right? And a lot of these trending things were like, they were just things that I didn't want in my head. Like they were oftentimes about relationships or but shitty things about relationships, like how you got PTSD from your last 2 relationships, or you're single, or like making fun of your men for being immature or something like that. And like those audios would just get like looped and stuck in my head, of course, because I listened to the same thing like 19 times when I was trying to,
or something about like fucking your sister's boyfriend or some shit because it's going to get a lot of attraction on TikTok, but it's actually kind of fucked up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right, exactly. And those things right. So I just I was like, I don't want to spend, not only do I not want to spend the time on it to doing it, but I don't want that occupying my mind while I'm doing other things either. So I don't know. At some point I just came to this realization that I didn't want anything to do with any of it anymore. And so I was on my way to Los Angeles, and I was on the airplane going from, I was just on the short flight from Chattanooga to Charlotte, and I wrote to my agency that I was done. I was like, yep, I'm firing you. And I didn't say it that way. I was just like, yeah, I think I'm just going in another direction with my career, and I'm probably shutting down my OnlyFans, so I won't be needing to work with you anymore. I do want to say to everyone that they did help me to become financially successful. I mean, it's a little bit hard to tease apart, actually. I made more money when I was working with these agencies than I made by myself. A little bit of this was also due to one video on Instagram that went viral and got 6 million views, and I got 500 followers from that.
Nice.
So for a while, but then that dropped off. It was sweet. It was thousands of dollars, in that at once. But then that the money and the number of followers did drop off. It didn't go back way back down, but it did drop off after time, as happens when you blow up just because you have that much visibility all at once. But so that dropped off. But I just decided, I just didn't want to do that anymore. It's also just because there were just other things that interested me that just interests me more right now. OnlyFans was kind of, at some point I was like, cool, it allows me to not have to travel and do photo shoots so much. And that was appealing. And I still want to have that in my life, like always have the choice to travel or not. But I've also more recently just really embraced traveling because I have this like other kind of travel themed Instagram page that I have been not putting a ton of time in. I don't know. This is it might be a whole other topic of like, where am I at now with any of this kind of thing. But but still now I find that more engaging. I wanted to put more time and energy into that, and actually traveling for doing photo shoots supported this other thing that I was neglecting because I was putting so much time into OnlyFans and doing TikTok for OnlyFans and all that stuff. So it just felt very freeing energetically, the idea of taking that whole piece out of my life. Scary because it is thousands of dollars a month that I now don't have. I'm splitting it with I'll just say the numbers. I'm splitting it with the agency, give them 50%, but that was still like, if I was making $4,000 a month, then that was $2,000 for me that I now don't have that income. So it's not a trivial amount of money for me to just say no to, but it's just a leap of faith, that I have to just trust that it's going to be all right.
Now are you booking more photo shoots while traveling to supplement for that income that you're not making?
Yeah, a couple of things. So I thought about that. I was like, oh, am I going to have to like book more photo shoots now? I don't want to do that. I mean, not that I don't want to have to do like more trips necessarily, but so a combination of things. So this is where like the magic of the universe and manifesting, I'm really relying quite a lot on that. And just telling myself that like, I'm just going to book plenty of photo shoots, or I'm going to make more money than I ever did somehow. And yes, I survived just fine before I even had OnlyFans. It's definitely obviously nice to have it, but, I'm just going to affirm that I will book more photo shoots when I do have trips. I also started an Airbnb, so that's another source of income that is, it's not entirely passive yet because I'm still kind of building all the infrastructure of it. But yeah, so you could say I manifested that in a way because it's my grandmother's house that my mom, gave to me basically. She was going to give it to me after she died anyway, but like she just signed it over to me and I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm going to start this as an Airbnb. So I've been working on that, and we started it in January, and it's been doing pretty well, even though it is in the middle of nowhere. And we started it in the lowest travel season. And so I have good expectations for the spring and summer for that actually. So that definitely is helping.
Nice.
Quite a lot. Yeah. So far I'm also spending a lot of money on that one too. But I think like the amount that I have to spend is now tapering off because I've taken care of a lot of the big things, like getting the carpet clean, getting the outside clean, getting the mold in the basement taken care of, that kind of crap. But yeah, so I have hopes for all of those things. And, but again, I have to say it's just mostly a leap of faith. It's not that I don't have any idea I have no idea at all where money will come from, but I want to not, in my mind anyway, limit it to, well, I have to then book more photo shoots or work harder at this thing. I'm going to continue doing photo shoots because that is how I make money now. And it's, it would fry my nervous system probably if I just didn't make any like plans to earn money that way. But I'm just going to, just choose that it's going to work out fine. I'm just going to keep doing the things that I'm doing and just trust that all the opportunities that are more aligned with where I am now are going to show up.
That's really cool. That's kind of the description of you like leaving OnlyFans and then transitioning towards like a life that's more fulfilling energetically for you. Kind of is like your rising phoenix moment in life, would you say?
I would say so. It's even just last week, or maybe this past weekend, I was like having this moment of like, because my OnlyFans at this point, somebody had subscribed. Probably they bought a year subscription because my last subscriber will run out in December of 2023. So even though I have deleted the page, so this was the whole process. I told all the people like, okay, I'm going to delete this page. So, if you need to download things, blah, 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 you need to do that. And, but the page is still there. I don't know if I can access it. I also deleted my Bent box, which I never made $1 on, but I was thinking of wanting to do it because I was like, cool, it'll be a little more passive than OnlyFans because you're not pressured to like engage a lot and post every day. But I just decided I didn't want to put any energy into that either. So I deleted it. And then OnlyFans, I could have just left it up because I did. Well, the first thing I did was I reduced the price of the subscription to $5.99. It's the lowest, or no, $4.99. It's the lowest that you can make it without making it free. And I didn't want to make it free because I still, I don't want people just going in there and being able to see my last 3 years worth of content for not paying any money. So I still think you should have to pay something. And then I just wrote it in the description. Hey, just so you know, I'm not active on here, but if you want to pay me $5 and go in there and just scroll through all my content and, write me a message, that's fine. But I'm just telling you that I'm not super active on here. And I could have just left it up. For a couple of weeks, it was making like, I don't know, $150 a week or something like that. And I was like, well, it's still money I have to do absolutely nothing for. But the truer thing to me was to still just not have any sort of energetic tie to this old identity of mine at all. It's not a piece of me that I'm ashamed of, or I'm like, think it's terrible, or I can't believe I did that kind of thing or anything like that. It's just kind of like when you go through phases in your life in general and you're just like, that's not me anymore. Just like the version of me that was a scientist. I have a PhD in biology. I used to be in academia. I can't imagine going back to doing that either. Like there's no way I could be like, I think I'll get a university job now. Well, firstly, that would be hard to do, but even if the job opportunities were there and somebody wanted to hire me for that, I just have like a physical aversion to like wanting to be that old version of myself anymore. And it's the same with this. It just doesn't captivate my attention anymore is all. It was very useful and helpful for all of the things that it did teach me. And now I just feel that the energy of it is complete is the way of saying it, I think that's the truer way of saying it than just being like, I'm so disgusted or whatever.
Yeah, we're just complaining about being burnt out all the time, but never taking the steps towards doing something new. Mm-hmm. That's really cool.
Yeah, so I'm not allowing myself to hold on to any of that old, it was like I've just burned the bridge, so now the only way to go is forward. So.
Wow. That's really inspiring, actually.
Yeah, I just try to remind myself of all the times that I have done that before. Sometimes quitting a job or losing a job. A lot of people have been through that, and it's fine. And it can end up better, and maybe, just maybe, it will end up better than you ever could have imagined.
Yeah.
So.
That's really awesome. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. We're about at time with the podcast length. But I think that you shared a lot of really interesting things that a lot of the stuff that I didn't know before, especially that you had deleted your OnlyFans.
Yeah, I was kind of waiting until I published the podcast episodes, which you're motivating me to do that today. I was waiting until I do that in order to announce it on Instagram, on my social media, because then people will pay attention probably that that's a thing that she did. So far, all you see on my Instagram is that I have basically stopped posting. I barely post anything on there anymore because I'm like, what is the purpose of this now? This is kind of the stage I'm at right now. What is the function of my Instagram page right now? Because up until this point, it was to drive traffic to my OnlyFans. And so
and if you're not doing that anymore, then function is just to gain likes, or I suppose it's kind of a poster board for photographers to hire you, but you don't need to post every day in order for that to happen.
Right. Exactly. It's like just to function as a portfolio, it's there. And yeah, it's, maybe helpful if you're posting consistently so that stories or whatever, so that they you're in their radar. But ultimately it's not super necessary to post every day for those purposes. Yeah. But yeah, that's where I'm at now.
That's cool.
And I'm just more and more trying to be like, what is the truer thing? I just had one of my favorite, coaches that I listen to she's the one that I was saying has this podcast where she just shares a lot and is she's very informal with it, but I just love listening to her. And she just shares a lot of her own personal process, her thoughts, kind of in the way that my podcast is. It's like I'm leaving a long message for a friend. That's kind of the vibe that I'm going for. But she is going into a phase now where she's wanting to be what does privacy have to offer me? What if I just keep all this to myself? What if I just live my life and don't tell the whole world about it all the time? It it was very helpful for her, and I'm just yeah. So I don't know that for myself. I don't know if I want to be more expressed, or kind of what would that be like if I just have a bunch of Airbnbs and go rock climbing.
That'd be cool.
And I don't have to share it all over social media all the time. Although I don't know. I still think I kind of want to, I think, but I'm in the phase of just trying to be the most honest with myself.
Yeah.
That I can be.
There's definitely a community aspect to posting and participating with others on social media.
I love it, and I do get really inspired by seeing other people's beautiful travel photos and videos and wanting to do it. So I do find that still really engaging, getting better at photography, getting better at editing, and just making things that are beautiful, that capture an experience. So I'm still pretty engaged with that.
That's awesome.
I love meeting creators like you that help me with those things.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, that was a fun time.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Well, I'm glad that we had this talk on this podcast. I'm excited to share it. My podcasts do come out every Thursday, and tomorrow is Thursday, so it should be out tomorrow if that's all right with you.
Yeah, that's fine with me.